Welcome to Homegrown Ventures 2026, a Greater Sudbury Showcase. Today's event is meant to be inspirational and provide motivation for current businesses, people who are aspiring to be future entrepreneurs, and for members of the community. So thank you so much for attending today. My name is Melissa Deschênes, and I am the program coordinator of the Business Incubator Program with the Regional Business Center, part of the City of Greater Sudbury.
Hello, Ani, bonjour. Thank you for everyone for being here today. My name is Anastasia Chartrand, and I am the Innovation and Commercialization Coordinator here at Laurentian University. And I feel like I need to be on my tiptoes because you're a bit taller than me. I don't want to touch it. Before we get started, we want to acknowledge the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and recognize that Laurentian University is on the traditional lands of the Atakmekshing Anishinaabeg, and also that the City of Greater Sudbury includes the traditional lands of Wanapitei First Nation. So as we gather today to celebrate innovation, entrepreneurship, we recognize that these values have long existed on this land, and they've been stewarded by the Indigenous peoples for generations. Just as a sign of our continued relationship here at Laurentian, we support Laurentian University's Truth and Reconciliation Task Force recommendations. Miigwech.
Thank you. Today we have three local business owners who have taken completely different paths in their journey towards entrepreneurship. And this really proves that entrepreneurship can be for anyone who wants to be a part of change, who wants to make a difference in Greater Sudbury, and who wants to really carve their own path moving forward. Oh yes, I didn't add this to my notes, but big thank you to Laurentian alumni for the recording of today's session. You will see the video will be posted on our organization's YouTube after this event.
I wanted to take a quick minute just to briefly introduce what the Foundry is. So the Foundry is the programming that's offered at Laurentian University for student entrepreneurs. So no matter what phase they are in their entrepreneurial journey, we're here to support them. Often, a lot of the programming that we run is held here in the innovation and commercialization space. Most of the students that we do work with are in their early stage or the ideation stage. We sit down with them one-on-one and we talk about the process and their next steps. Part of that might even include doing some early prototyping in the makerspace that is just the room next to us. We also offer crash courses and workshops for these entrepreneurial students to learn valuable skills and to understand more of that journey that they're planning to take. So whether we're working with students who are developing a brand new idea or they're already established as a business, we're here to connect them to the broader innovation ecosystem here in Greater Sudbury. So oftentimes we introduce them to the Regional Business Center, NORCAD, and other members of this community. I'm happy to see that some of those students are here in the audience today, and I really look forward to you all being here to listen to these presentations from three very inspiring entrepreneurs and just hearing a bit more about their journey. So thank you.
And really quickly about the Regional Business Center. The Regional Business Center is a one-stop shop for business support. So whether you're thinking about starting a business or you currently have a business and you're looking for support with expanding, we offer all of these services for free, which include, business plan review, coming in for consultations. We're truly here to support you and your entrepreneurship journey. We also have three really wonderful programs that we're very excited about. The first one being Starter Company Plus. Applications for this program is currently closed, and it will be starting soon, but look forward to this program at a later date where you can get up to $5,000 for your startup. Summer Company. This program is currently open, so I encourage if there's any students in the room or if anybody who knows a student and who's thinking of starting a business over the summer months, this is a perfect program for them. We help the students start their business, help them manage their business, give them some training, and give them a grant of up to $3,000 for their business expenses. It's a really wonderful program. And we do have the program coordinator here, Lyra, at the back, so if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to her. And finally, the Business Incubator Program. This is the program that I coordinate, and we have quite a few people in the room from the program, so big shout out to everybody who came today. Again, it's a really wonderful program, a 6-month-long program that really focuses on mentorship. So whether you're incubating an idea and you're developing something brand new, or you have an innovative service or product that is not offered here in Greater Sudbury, this is the perfect program for you, entirely free and open to anyone over 18 years of age who's in the Greater Sudbury area to participate in. So I encourage you to apply for that one too. Okay, it is without further ado that I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dean Lupini, owner of Key Logic Solutions, and he's going to share his journey about entrepreneurship with us. Thank you.
And I thought there'd be a flat surface, but... Good afternoon, everybody. How are you all doing? Perfect. Okay. My name's Dean. I'm going to tell you all about Key Logic. It's a business I started in 2009. We are a team of software developers here in Sudbury. So I just wanted to get to know you guys a little bit. I'm just wondering who here is either pursuing or in a career in software development. Maybe by clapping your hands. Anybody? Too far? Anybody here in software development?
We got someone here.
Okay. Okay, those of you who are not in software development, can I ask you guys, what do you think software development is? Any volunteers?
App creation, developing software.
That's a good way to put it.
Turning everyday things into digital avenues. Coding.
It's all good answers. So I thought, around the same lines, but it ends up it's a lot more than that too. So what Key Logic does is we develop software, which is, telling a computer what to do, more or less, if you want to look at it that way. But, there's design, there's planning, there's overall systems engineering, there's working with clients, there's running the business. So I'm going to tell you about the 16-year journey from about 2009, when I was way too young to start a business. I had a lot to learn, and I got into it, and just how things have progressed since then. Okay, a little bit about my background. I'm from Sudbury. I went to St. Charles College. I did an internship at a computer store at that time. So that's just a little bit about my introduction to computers. I then went to the University of Waterloo for computer science, a Bachelor of Mathematics, and a degree in bioinformatics, which probably nobody's heard of. But at the time, we were the first class, and it's basically biological computing for, say, DNA and protein folding and things like that. I decided then Sudbury just felt like home, so I came back. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and I came to Laurentian for a master's in mining engineering. The reason being, and this is going to be a common theme, is Sudbury always manages to surprise me. So as I was looking for opportunities, there was a professor here that was doing like robotic stuff in mining, and I ended up building that screen that you see on the left, which was for remote controlling mining equipment. So I started building some ties to mining in that regard. Some of my earlier work experience was at NVIDIA, actually, if you're familiar with that company. Back then, I think they were about 300 to 800 people. During my time there, they were growing. I worked on the demo team, so we were taking the earliest hardware and writing software to show off what it can do. And when I got there was what led to the cryptocurrency hardware, but at the time, they were just starting to release their programmable hardware. Well, I won't get into details, but we started being able to do like super cool things like that truck you see there and really photorealistic graphics for gaming. So that was my real entry into 3D graphics. Lastly, as I mentioned, Sudbury always tends to surprise me. As I was doing my master's, I started looking for part-time gigs, and I was looking for software companies and thinking, I might be doing some remote work or traveling a little bit. And I found a software company that does CAD software that was really interesting. And I looked up the address, and it was 1351 Kelly Lake Road. I could basically see the building. So with a global outlook on where I could work, I ended up finding a place in Sudbury just by searching the internet. So I ended up working for them part-time, and they did like CAD stuff for flattening, upholstery and car seats and stuff. So that's what you see on the right-hand side. Finally, I decided to give some full-time work a chance, and once I finished my master's, I worked for a local mining software company, and they did 3D mine planning, so that's the last image you see there. If I'm ever too far away from the microphone, somebody just put their hand up and warn me. So that was my background. After 2 years of working full-time, I'd say I kind of didn't have a choice. I just had to start a business. I just knew I did. When I was telling people what I was working on, I never sounded happy explaining it. And it just seemed like it was also the right time in my life. I didn't have kids yet or anything, and financially I was in a good spot. I just bought a duplex. And so it was the lowest point of risk to start the business. And then just as an anecdote, I took an economics course at the University of Waterloo, and the first thing Larry Smith had us do was write down where we saw ourselves in 10 years. And what I wrote down for some reason was that I would own a business. So I think I had the bug early on, and then the right timing came, and I felt like I had the background in software development, not realizing there's a lot more to software development than maybe I would have thought at the time. So in 2009, I launched. Key Logic, what I was trying to do at the time was take my entire background and put it together, 3D graphics, math algorithms, mining, and I was noticing Sudbury was tending to try and hire a lot of software developers, so I'm like, if I just have a business, I can go after those jobs as a contractor. So that's what I did, and I picked up my first client actually was a visualizer for 3D, a 3D visualizer for ventilation in the mines, and that was a local company, and it was, not to drop any names, but it was a bigger name in Sudbury for engineering firms, so it was a great start for me just to build my name a little bit. After that, we started building 3D scanning software, so that's us in the mine doing a 3D scan, so I was starting to go underground and things like that. And the last picture you see on the right is a remote control station for 3D scanning software. So I just tried to, make as many contacts as I could, and the main thing was just a lot of learning because there was so many facets to running the business, besides just doing the actual coding. I was now designing things from scratch and, planning long term and designing systems that also talk to hardware. So it really got to be a lot of interesting work. So from 2010 to 2017, I'd say I was building the business and my skills, literally building the business. That's my first office. The way I rented it is on the left, and the way I finished it was on the right. So you could see I was also learning construction of all things while I was doing the software business. From there, I got to say the most important thing that I learned still on? Probably the most important thing I learned at this point was that it all comes down to the people and your team. That's probably the most important thing for any business. And it might be your employees, but it might be where you seek help. It might be your network, but the people around you are really who's going to help you succeed. So from 2017 is about when I found the first key player that was just a really good fit. And we started really growing at that point, probably like doubling every year. We grew the team to about, I think, 5 or 6, and maybe an intern or 2 by the time 2020-ish hit. And then we kind of had to put a pause on things in 2020, so we downsized once 2020 came. Since we were a services-based business, a lot of it disappeared kind of overnight. So of all the ups and downs, I'd say that was one of the downs that we hit over the 16 years. The other side of the team is on the right, and you'll see our kids there, and even our cat is in the bottom right digging a hole. But I bring this up because the other side of this is work-life balance, obviously. There's always a lot to do, but you always got to be mindful of, everything else that matters in life too. So there's a bit of a balancing act there. So we started having kids, and we ended up having 3. So there's always been that balancing that had to happen as well. How am I doing for time? Good. Okay, so 2020, we slowed down a bit. Now, the good news, the positive part of this, was that since our services slowed down a bit in 2020, we actually changed directions and pivoted a bit and focused on our product development. So I actually found out last week, this product, we were awarded a patent for it in the US. So we're now applying for Canada and Australia. But this is called the Scout, and it was an idea that came up with a client, and we partnered on it. And it measures drill holes in the mines, to make a long story short. But it is now a patented piece of technology, and it's our algorithm and our design, so we're quite proud of that. So despite 2020 being a bit tough, a very good thing came from it by pivoting and changing directions. Number 2, we worked on a virtual and augmented reality platform, and that takes a whole bunch of technologies and puts them together in a nice package. We did some training systems for valet in Thompson, Manitoba and Voisey's Bay. So it's a holographic-based training system. So that was something else we focused on. So another big win for us, and a really cool piece of technology. And I'm actually doing another product demo for it next week. So it's been a piece of IP that we hold, and that has a lot of prospects for us. And finally, this is in partnership with my wife. I was mentioning great team members, and she's one of them. She had an idea to solve a problem at the hospital she works at, and it worked so well that she decided to make a big business out of it. So we designed a printer that does pharmacy labeling systems. It's just more efficient and more safe. So that's another product that was developed kind of in the last 3-4 years. And I guess lastly, where do we go from here? So I'm talking about from now to the finish line of KeyLogic, and what I'm thinking is we have a bunch of avenues we can go down, and as you all know, things have drastically changed for software development this past year mostly, with AI tools and everything else going on. So we're trying to reinvent ourselves a little bit too on the services side. We've partnered with an AI company, in fact, and we're starting to use these tools not only to write the software, but to plan product development and estimate and come up with timelines and market studies and things like that. So it's a very cool company that we're using their technology to help us not only write software better, but to help our clients better and to plan better. We're going to take our patent and see where this product goes for the mining. And we've also worked on a piece of proposal software that really helps us manage our client documentation and bidding on jobs. So that's our next big venture as well. Aside from that, I think that's how we're going to scale the business, is by using the latest technology that is at our disposal and building the right tools. And of course, keeping the right team on board. And people's the most important thing. So we're just going to make sure we have a happy team of in the office and supporting around us. And I think that's it. Do we do questions now or later? Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean. It was actually really interesting. I had no idea that you had done some physical products as well. So, I mean, combining that with your software development, that's quite incredible. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Heather Knight, who has had a very unexpected journey towards entrepreneurship, and she is the co-founder of HK Industrial.
So before I get to the unfortunate set of events that led to me starting a business, I'll first give you my origin story. So my mother always told me, whatever you do, don't be useless at anything. I took that to heart and have built a very eclectic resume. I've worked across 3 different countries and many, many different industries. But one thing most of my employments had in common is small businesses. I do prefer working for small businesses. There's a sense of caring, knowing the person who signs your paycheck at the end of the day, sharing meals with them, ideas, sharing jokes, you wind up with a much more close-knit workforce. You help one another, wind up learning from one another, and get a better sort of overall view of how the business functions. And with all that, I never really shied away from challenges, which kind of led me to work, on boats, in sales, logistics, ridiculously high-end retail. I've handed flyers out on street corners. Up until 2019, when I started grooming cats and dogs, which leads me to the unfortunate events. So everything was going fine in 2020, up until the world ended, and like a lot of people, I was laid off from my job. So I stayed home, collected CERB, decided that grooming animals probably wasn't the best for me. I found it really hard on my body, and if I'm going to wreck myself, it'll be through roller derby and not a job. So I started looking at job postings. A few months later, I wasn't up to too much. My husband came home from work. There had been an incident on the mine site he worked on. A chain hoist damaged a really expensive big piece of equipment. So the idea was to create safe storage and transport of chain hoists. So we put our heads together and developed just a specialty designed tote bag called the Safe-A-Block. I bought an industrial sewing machine, did some research into thread and materials, and after a lot of screaming and crying in frustration, figuring out how to go from a small machine to a big industrial machine, I made 12 bags for our first order. Then word got out, and there was a pouch and strap that I was asked to design to carry some new mandatory personal protective equipment for mines. I was asked to make 400 for an entire mine here in Sudbury. That's all. And I couldn't really fathom those numbers. So what I did was I started looking on Facebook. I reached out to local sewing groups, found quilters, found bag makers, people that you might see at our local markets, and worked with them, bought a whole lot of material, started cutting and marking everything by hand, all the Velcro with scissors, a hot knife for any of the webbing. We've since found machines and services to do a lot of that for us and speed up the process. But we ended up getting that done in, I think, a little over a month. And then we started pushing out to more mines in Sudbury, more mines across the country. So I needed more sewists. I found that I could find people with the skills, but not necessarily the equipment. And an industrial sewing machine starts at about $1,000, which, I mean, not a whole lot of people have that laying around. So I purchased the sewing machines for the sewists, and they just worked at a bit of a reduced piece rate, usually paying it off in about a month or two. And actually now a lot of them are taking on like more contracts and custom work and working from home. Here we go. There we go. So as we got more visibility, more people started coming to us with more ideas, more issues, more products that just didn't quite hit the mark. I've said we've taken on loads of those ideas, but I have also said no. It's okay to say no. I have said no to products when I haven't had time to develop them. I have said no and sent people a link to where they could buy exactly what they were already after. And I've said no, and then a year or two later, come back and said yes, because they just kept asking. So we work with the end users quite a bit, test on mine sites, and that winds up, when people get our products into their hands, quite often it's this like, oh my God, yes, that's exactly what I've been looking for. And we wind up sort of being that square peg to fill that square hole in the markets. So we have about 9 products. They're not all home runs in the beginning. You just have to keep improving. And with 1 or 2 things, sometimes you have to admit defeat. So the big yellow backpack there with the X on it, I said no to that for 2 years. And then I worked on trying to have it made in Canada for 2 years. I couldn't get the quality that I wanted for a price that anyone was willing to pay, even these big, multi-billion-dollar businesses. So that's our only product that we have made overseas. Everything else is made here in Ontario and mostly in Sudbury. And we're in 4 different retailers. So we're in Sudbury, Dixon, Vallon, Susie Sallow, and Westco. We've had some amazing local champions who have wanted to see us to succeed. And that's one thing I've learned, that people want you to succeed. They want to help you and be a part of your success, which leads me to why I'm able to do what I do. And a huge part of our success are the people that we work with. This was the 2024 Business Excellence Awards. We were finalists for innovation. Thank you to a very dear friend who nominated us. So in the picture, it's myself and my husband, Steve, and then Allison and Denise, who have been with us from the very beginning, our first 2 sewists, and then Gertrude, Brent, and Jess as well. And then there's also Ying, Donna, Pauline, Ruth, Ando, and now Lulu, who have helped us along the way. So, they're more why I do what I do. It's not a bank balance or a product or some Instagrammable holiday. I take that small business caring that I mentioned in the beginning, share meals with one another. One of my sewists, the first time I met her, she told me she had just left an abusive relationship, wanted to buy a house. My reaction was, fuck yes, let's do that. I want to be a part of that. Let's do this. And then fast forward a few years, 2024, a few weeks before Christmas, I showed up at her new house with a big tray of Damascus shawarma, and we just sat and watched. Thank you. Christmas movies together and hung out with her cats and her daughter, and we had a great time. And just in case anybody did doze off, I figured I would throw a cat in for good measure. And one thing that's always sort of stuck with me throughout my journey, this accidental really journey into entrepreneurship, was a conversation I overheard probably about 15 years ago. I was on holiday. It was an island nation, and my friends and I ended up at some party, and I was sat next to a friend of a friend named Alex. Now, Alex worked for his dad, and he was chatting to an American business owner who had a business on the island. And I don't know how they got there, but Alex asked, why did you start a business? And the guy said, well, of course, I started a business to make money. And Alex's response was, no, that's the wrong answer. You don't start a business to make money. You start a business to create opportunity. Yay. And with my cat.
That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Very touching and very inspirational. So thank you so much, Heather. Our final speaker today is making progressive waves in life sciences. I'm pleased to introduce Philip Stringer, owner of Triple Points Biologics.
So my name is Philip Stringer. Just to preface everything, I don't have a cat in this presentation. So I see the other two presenters managed to make it in. My cat didn't make the cut, so I'm going to have a hard conversation with her later. So yeah, my name is Philip Stringer. I am the owner of Triple Point Biologics, and to give you a little bit of background about us is, where did I go here? My presentation in here? How does this thing work? Oh, there we go. So where it all started. So I'm Sudbury born and raised, born here in Sudbury. My dad was in the mining industry for the longest time. My mom used to work for the Delices at the Sorrento Hotel. So I have a background here in Sudbury, and I've always enjoyed staying in Sudbury. There's always interesting things that I've noticed that are going on. And as I was growing up, I found myself always being curious. I've always wanted to try different things, try and take things apart, put things back together. It got me in trouble quite a bit, actually, when I was a kid. But nonetheless, that curiosity was just always there as I was growing up. And it kind of led me into here. So I'm actually an alumni of Laurentian College, Laurentian University. I graduated with a bachelor's in biochemistry back in 2013. And the reason why I went into biochemistry was because I've always had this innate interest in sciences. I've always been curious as to why, the human body is doing what it's doing. There's so many different processes that happen inside the human body. Every moment, there's billions of different reactions going on in there, and it's just absolutely flabbergasting. You could just never get bored of it because there's always new innovations coming out of it. So it led me into biochemistry at the program here, and it really also formed the background of where I started and where I wanted to come into this. With the biochemistry degree, while I was here as a student, one of the things that came up, and I remember in one of my courses, actually, I think it was Dr. Kumar that teaches here, we were talking about antibodies. So if anybody doesn't know what antibodies are, basically when you get sick, the human body has to produce a response to that. Those are antibodies that are produced in that response. So during this class, I remember sitting there thinking, and it got stuck in my head just like everything else. I started thinking, what can you use these things for? What are the different purposes of it? And it really led me down a path of, thinking different avenues, different ways that you could use them. The literature, so the scientific literature, had different uses for them as well. But I was never really able to capitalize on it, just like any other broke student. When you're going to university, you really don't have money for this kind of stuff, so you kind of have to settle for what you get. So basically, after I graduated Laurentian, I wound up, there I am. Look at that handsome devil. After I graduated university, I went into, first I started in medical research. So I actually worked at, it used to be called AMRIC, Advanced Medical Research Institute of Canada, now HSNRI. And then once I left there, I actually went into government. And I worked for government for about 10 years. At one point, actually, I was an environmental scientist for Indigenous Services Canada. And I really learned a lot of things along the way during that process. A lot of different things that university just doesn't prepare you for. The resiliency, change, how to navigate different processes. And one of the things that was really important that came out of that job was that you have to understand when you work for Indigenous Services Canada, you only have a finite amount of money that you're actually working with First Nations on. And you have to be able to make that last, and you have to be able to find different ways that you can put that money in towards things. And I actually remember Jean Chrétien, he Prime Minister of Canada for a long time. I don't know why I'm evoking his name right now, but he actually said it best because he used to be the minister for Indigenous Services Canada long before I was there. He said, you really have to be creative to make it in there. If you can be creative, you can go far in that organization. And I remember taking that, and it was really a life lesson for that I really gained from that. So I was working for government for the longest time, and then in 2024, a business opportunity came up. So Triple Point Biologics isn't necessarily the kind of startup that you guys would think it is. It was actually started in 1994 by an American. And he was operating the business for 30 years or so. In 2016, he thought, I'm going to wind things down. I want to step away from things. I want to diversify the business. And in 2024, he decided to basically sell it. And I actually came along and I purchased it. So Triple Point Biologics has actually been operating for the last 30 years. And what we do, and the reason why I bought it was because, it came back to antibodies. So what antibodies are, and I'll give you a little bit of a quick biochemistry lesson, unfortunately, is that when scientists need to study human disease, they need to focus on a single protein within the human body. And when you're thinking about billions of different reactions that go on every second within the body, that means there's billions of different proteins that you can take a look at. Some of these might change around. They might be, higher expressed, lower expressed. They might change in their form, things like that. And so if you're only looking at one protein inside of billions of different ones, how do you detect it? Well, that's how you come with antibodies. So what they do is they actually bind to these proteins very specifically. And when that happens, researchers are able to actually take these to their experiments and utilize them. So they're able to actually visualize how these proteins are working. They can use them in their experiments. And this is great. So when I purchased Triple Point, we had 981 SKUs. So we actually have 981 products presently of different antibodies that target different proteins. But the problem is that a lot of our products are manufactured in animals. So dirty secret of life sciences, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of, you have to have animals. It's still a requirement for a lot of things. Antibodies, though, not so much. And the reason being is because science has actually come a long way. You no longer have to use animals to manufacture these antibodies. You can actually take the genetic information of these antibodies and manufacture it inside of a cell. So what we're doing now is we're moving along from these antibodies manufactured in rabbits mostly, and we are starting to take that genetic information and sequencing that inside of a human cell. And so this is a process that's been around for quite some time, but what sets us apart is that a lot of the companies usually only have one antibody inside of this whole mixture. What we've done is we've kind of made the process so that it mimics the way that antibodies are within an animal. And what the advantage of this is that our antibodies can actually be more specific. It's actually more sensitive as well in the detection. So if you're a researcher, obviously if you're only detecting these small little minute quantities, you need something that's going to be really specific in there. Our antibodies would be able to match the animal-derived antibodies, all without any issues of animal use, as well as the issues of antibodies not being able to what we call reproduce. So if you're an experimenter, if you're trying to run an experiment, you need to be able to reproduce that to show that it actually works. A lot of the animal-derived antibodies actually don't do that. So our product is able to actually beat that. And we're able to actually utilize this in multiple different areas. So I talk about medical research for one, but it's not just in medical research. So I have a little COVID test on here. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to invoke the C word here for a second. But everybody remembers those types of tests when you guys were taking them. That's actually an antibody-based test. So those little lines on there are actually antibodies that we're detecting the COVID antigen. So these are where the antibodies are utilized now. There's not a lot of companies in Canada that manufacture these tests. There's only about 3 or 4 companies in Canada that manufacture them. We're hoping to be the 5th one. And then the last use as well is that there's also military applications with them as well. If you think about a soldier on the battlefield, they're faced with a whole bunch of different issues with regards to chemical weapons. That was one of the areas that antibodies are actually still utilized today. But a lot of the systems are actually made in the US. There's no system made in Canada yet. We're hoping later on that we can start looking at a made in Canada system for that as well. So there's a lot of different application areas for this. So when I purchased Triple Point, I thought, this is great. I'm taking an American company and I'm making it Canadian again. Can't go wrong with that. This is before all the funness that went on. But right now we have 2 very large multinational distributors that take our products and put their name on it and call it their own, which is fine. And then we also have 10 distributors as well worldwide. So we sell bulk of our products into the US, and then we're also selling into China, we're selling into Europe. We just started seeing some going down south of the border to Mexico. So we're really an international company, but we're also very small. We're very local. I'm one of the only people that work for this business right now. But we're hoping to change that. So right now we're going through a capital raise. We're trying to raise additional funding to get our products out there, reintroduce some of our existing portfolio, as well as bring our new products to market. And we've been working with some great organizations around Sudbury. So I have to point out NORCAT, who's in the room. Oh, you're welcome, Bart. Northern Ontario Angels as well. So they've been a great organization. They brought us to Venture North's pitch last year. We were one of the finalists that did the pitch competition last year. And also Laurentian University has also been a good resource as well. HSNRI has been a good resource for us. But it's really a different path than what you might see with some of the other businesses. And the reason being is because when you're in the med tech industry, or when you're in the biotech and life sciences and things like that, it's really a closed off sector. And you really have to know that network in order to get in there. And NORCAT and NOA and Laurentian have been great resources for us to try and get into these networks. So I just want to give a shout out to those guys here. And then, yeah, we want to stay in Sudbury, essentially. So this is a business that I think that we can keep here. We have the expertise. I know Laurentian has the programs. Obviously, I graduated for one of them. And I think that this is a business that can go pretty far inside of Sudbury, and we want to make sure that we keep our roots here. So stay tuned on hearing more from us, and that's it for my presentation today.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation, and I really loved how you ended that, keeping our roots here. So that's very motivational. Thank you so much. I'd like to, at this time, invite our three speakers back to the front for our panel discussion. Test.
Yes.
Right. We are on. Again, thank you so much, you three, for your amazing presentations. Very inspiring today. Almost had a few tears at a few points. So thank you very much for that. And some of you answered this a little bit, but have you always pictured yourself as an entrepreneur?
We're starting here.
You can go deep.
All right.
I'm happy to go.
I want to hear your answer first.
No, not at all. I quite, accidentally ended up as an entrepreneur. Although it turns out I do have a bit of a history. This is actually the third business that my husband and I have run together without really realizing it. So I never thought I was, but turns out I am.
I don't think I pictured it, but subconsciously I was, because now that you ask the question, I'm thinking about the history. I had 3 paper routes as a kid to buy my first computer. When I was doing my master's, I got some part-time work, but I also started a company then called PC Response, which I just helped students fix their computers. At the time, it was like Windows ME, which was brought lots of work in, actually. And like I said, when I was asked the question in university, my first answer was in 10 years, I'm going to be a business owner. So I think subconsciously the bug was always there.
Yeah, I don't. Is this on? No, it's not working. Do I have to talk? Is this? Oh, God. That worked. No, I didn't actually see myself as an entrepreneur either. I grew up in a family that was entrepreneurial, though. My dad always had a business. He used to make cultivated marble. He owned a diamond drilling company. And then he was president and CEO of a publicly traded company. So he went all over the place. So I kind of grew into that and seeing my dad go through that. And my mom was always supporting him as well and going through those processes. It probably probably existed in the background, but no, I always thought, it's going to be med school I was going to go to, and then when I was working in government, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I just kind of fell into it when the opportunity came up.
That's absolutely, and I think it's important to foster, right, that entrepreneurship spirit at a young age, really to inspire that and to give confidence to people to start a business later in their career. So our next question has to do with the skills, talent, and education that you feel are fundamental to entrepreneurship.
I can go first, I guess. I'll take it off the pressure. No pressure, guys. The skills. You learn a lot. Your education is important, I think, in entrepreneurship, because you need that background, you need that understanding. But I think more than anything, there's the life lessons that you have to go through as well. There has to be a certain level of resiliency. You're going to get a lot of no's, obviously. But then there's also going to be, that one opportunity to get to the yes. And you just have to go through the process to get to that one yes, I think, is one of the biggest issues. Skill-wise, business side of things, I would say if you can learn an accounting program, accounting is Greek to me, but at least understanding how to do that kind of stuff has been really helpful. But I feel like it's more the life lessons than anything that are just as important as the education behind it.
I would say definitely any sort of accounting, bookkeeping. Years ago, I took a course just because I needed it at the time for a business that I didn't realize now that I had. I've found that just like all the weird, awful jobs that I've had in the past and wearing different hats kind of prepared me for wearing all the different hats within my business. But definitely bookkeeping, any sort of accountancy is great.
To add to those two answers, I'm going to steal somebody else's answer that I got last week, because I was talking to somebody who manages an investment fund that focuses on Northern Ontario pre-seed, and I actually asked them, what would you say the biggest indicator to a company in that stage is that they're going to be successful? And he said it's the team and the grit. So, like you said, resiliency is probably the biggest indicator of being successful ahead of time. The skills, once you get into it, I think you realize where you have to step up and learn if you have that base resiliency. And you also learn what you need to delegate and what you should take on yourself. So every journey is different, and I think depending on your particular skills, if you have the resiliency to learn what you need to, delegate what you can, and move forward from there. The other one is, I think, a hidden talent, but I think there is a hidden talent in identifying something that you could really add value to. So any business, whatever it is you're offering, I guess the key is it has to have value, right? So it might take many iterations to get there, but I think it's a hidden talent to look at the market and identify something that adds true value to the market.
Can I just add one thing on there too? You actually just hit on a good point. I think it's passion. I think passionate, because you have to go through, like what Dean just said, if you're going through the grit and resiliency and everything like that, you have to be passionate about it, because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to keep going through that whole process for all those no's and going to that one yes. So I think that's a good point there too, is with that hidden talent, you have to have that passion. And I think that's where it comes from. So.
We do often presentations with the Regional Business Center. In one of our presentations, we talk about what we need for entrepreneurship. And one of those things happens to be decision-making skills, right? You have to be able to make decisions, whether it's the right one or not. And in fact, not making a decision is a decision in itself. So my next question has to do with any barriers or roadblocks or situations that you've encountered in your business where you've had to adapt or change.
I haven't gone first yet, so plus I have a lot of examples. That goes back to the grit. You're always going to hit roadblocks. You're always going to have issues to work around. So pivoting or finding a way through it, or you might have a finish line in mind. Maybe you have to shift what that looks like in order to get there. So there's a lot of ways to do lateral movements or think outside the box and get around the barriers. But These barriers might be sales, and I've been through that. Like sometimes things aren't going to happen as quick as you think. So you have to kind of adjust your plan at that point. Things might be harder to sell than you think, or the sales cycle might be longer than you anticipated. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that money might come into play. In my business, technical challenges are a big one. You set out to build a piece of software or to solve a challenge, say in the mining industry, and it's not as simple as you thought. So again, you're usually trying to figure out either an alternate route, or you just plow through it and it takes longer than you thought. So there's the money, the technical challenges. I think having the right people is probably one of the other challenges that a lot of businesses run into. And when you do find those key people, it makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of echo a lot of that. I mean, just sort of being willing and able to change and pivot. Like we've had our products, they start off one way and we think it's great. And 6 months later, we figure out, oh no, that's actually garbage. So we need to, change the fabric or, change something about it. So yeah, that's pretty well the same.
Yeah, so I got a good example of that. When I first acquired the business back in 2024, everyone knows what happened afterwards in the US, and we had somebody down there that doesn't like us, I guess you could say. But within a week of the tariffs coming on, we actually noticed lower sales because most of our sales actually went to the US. So we actually had to pivot really quickly and get our sales out to other countries. And that was one of the biggest things that I noticed, is that you got to be ready for a change, and it can happen within a week. Things can change, things can upend, things can go sideways, and you don't even realize it, and you just got to figure it out and problem solve it, essentially. Surrounding yourself with a team that understands that, I think, is a big thing, because that team that I worked with and that have that understanding of the industry, they were able to help us pivot quite quickly, but it's that interesting. It's okay, don't worry.
She's checking the hockey.
Give me the score after. It's that change that you got to be willing to accept and just go with the flow and accept things the way that they are, and just realize that not everything's going to be in your control. You're just going to have to go with the punches and find a way to get around it.
Absolutely. So adaptability, flexibility, being able to pivot, I think is kind of on everybody's mind right now. Our next question has to do with any tips or resources or tools or organizations that have supported you along the way.
Oh my God. So Regional Business Center, I went through the Starter Company Plus program. I got $5,000 for free. That's the key word. You want free services. But, they gave me loads of guidance with starting. Mel, at the Innovation Quarters, loads of help and feedback on things. NORCAT as well. I have mentors through there that I work with, and yeah, there's so much good to come out of those organizations that can help you.
Yeah, I would also second NORCAT. I'm a client there. Bart actually showed me how to use LinkedIn. Thank you, Bart. You have a lot of the city resources, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. There's also a lot of different funders around here. So being a biotechnology business, we rely on external funding that we're going through right now. So you have to look at your grants, look at your local resources, NOHFC, CLODE, High CLODE. NOHFC is a great program. FedNor has great programs. You really have to find it, though, and go out there. So if you can find a resource that might be able to point you in those directions, like NORCAT, those are great opportunities for small businesses, I think, if you have a product that they're willing to fund.
I'm going to echo these things are shutting off once in a while. Yeah. I'm going to echo the Regional Business Center because that's where I started. I think when I first started Key Logic in 2009, that was my first stop. So Jose, thank you for helping me way back then. And I continued to visit there when because I was a sole proprietorship originally, and then I incorporated, so I continued to use them through the years. NOHFC was a big help, so money is always a factor, and any sources of funding you can find. So NOHFC was a big supporter over the years with some of my product developments. I believe I even utilized FedNor for an internship program to help hire on a first-year graduate. So those sources are always amazing. We're lucky to have that in Northern Ontario. In fact, it's a big draw for business, the fact of how much resources Sudbury has in that regard. NORCAT has been a very big one right from the get-go as well. In fact, I've had multiple clients in that building, but for mentorship as well, and just for peer mentorship. Every time I go to that building, I'm chatting with these guys, and everybody that's in there always has great insights to share. So I continue to do that as well. And I said it in my presentation, but Sudbury has always surprised me. So the level of support that you can find just within the networks here, you just got to get yourself out there, and there's tons of mentorship and help available.
I really love the Regional Business Center plug, and of course, the introduction to all of the other services we have in Sudbury. We have a wonderful business ecosystem here in Greater Sudbury, so this is really a great place that will help you foster businesses and help you grow. So take advantage of that. Our next question has to do with your industry. Over the years, some of you are newer entrepreneurs, but have you seen any changes in your industry that you've had to adapt to?
What hasn't changed in biotechnology? In our industry, yeah, just even over the last 30 years, I mean, we've seen so much technology that's just come and go, but then tried and true has always stayed behind. So when you look at biotechnology and you hear antibodies, everyone thinks that this is a new and great thing. This is actually, we've been doing this since the 1970s. There's nothing new to it. It's just different formats that we actually put out on it. That's what makes it so innovative. But the antibodies themselves have actually been around for 50, 60 years, and we're still using it. And that I think speaks to the tried and true stuff will always have a place inside of a business, whereas the new shiny things that are just starting out, they may not have that staying power as some of the original stuff in there. So I think that's what we're seeing is the staying power of our products staying in that industry, and it makes it a little bit easier. There's new products that come out all the time, but it's the tried and true stuff that people keep going back to.
There we go. Give it a few taps. Yeah, software's obviously changed quite a bit since I started in 2009. Number one, I was in mining originally, so I discovered how cyclical that can be. So I'd say the biggest change I made to adapt to that was, as I mentioned, hiring different team members, but with different skills than my own. So while I always stayed focused on the industry side and mining, we then diversified out to medical apps or mobile and web apps in scientific and medicine fields, and even in just business management, workforce management software. So I'd say that was one big change, is just how the different industries have their own cycles. We've adapted that way. And the other big thing is, software technology, development tools and stuff has always evolved in terms of new programming languages and things like that. But the biggest one by far and the quickest is the last, I'd say, year and a half. You hear everybody saying it, the software developers aren't going to exist pretty soon. And I think they're being dramatic, but we're obviously adapting to that. We're using AI tools and incorporating that into our processes, and it's definitely changed the way we write software. So I think the key thing is always just learn as you go and just pay attention, and you have to adapt and you have to learn as things change.
Great answer.
I've not, excuse me. So my industry there's not huge amounts of change. Where the change has been is where we sort of found our niche. There's been backpacks existing underground, people using them for probably decades. The same with, there's this thing called a miner's wallet. It's a little bifold. People use it for paperwork. But we found that, people just wanted sort of modernized versions. So I took a piece of, for instance, I took a piece of clear PVC and stuck it in a miner's wallet, and now it's touch screen compatible. So they can use their phones in it to take pictures, so it's little things like that that have been the main changes in ours.
Certainly, this time technology is evolving so much, right? And adapting your business to the way the world is moving is how you're going to stay in business in these days. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to end with our final question. If you had to give your younger self a piece of advice when it comes to thinking about starting a business, what would it be?
Write everything down. You're good as you go. You're going to have a lot of stuff in your head about like how and why you did things. Write it down. Not necessarily pen and paper, but this will all sort of create your policies, your procedures, the whys and hows of your business, which will help later on when you go to hire someone. All of a sudden, it's not such a big deal trying to train them because it's all here. If you then go to sell your business one day, it adds value because it's all there. So just record everything you possibly can. Get it out of your head and get it down.
For me, it would be, first you got it, little buddy. Good job, little buddy. For me, though, it would be realizing that there's more than one path to entrepreneurship. You don't have to start something. You can acquire it, or you can take something and change it around a little bit. And it also doesn't have to be this new idea that's never been done before. It's probably a bad idea if it was a new idea that's never been done before, because chances are somebody did do it and it didn't work out. There's multiple different areas that you can take a look at that, and I would tell myself that, like, you can do this differently. It's not just one path. There's multiple paths to it. So.
Yeah, it's hard to expand on those two things. Piggybacking off of your answer, though, I think a business is a system of processes that's going to create what you've designed it to create. So the documentation and the processes you put in place, you make those repeatable, and you change the ones that aren't working, and you build on the ones that are. And over the years, you end up with a system that is going to produce what you want it to produce. So just pay attention to the business side of it. I think one of my flaws at the time was I didn't stay above the work. My head was always down at the keyboard, so I could have done a better job at focusing on the business side of it. So I think you can't forget about that part. When you're passionate about the actual work, don't ignore the business side. I think that's pretty much it. And buy some Bitcoin. That's what I would. Other than that.
Thank you so much. Can we get a big round of applause for these speakers today? We just have some final addresses at the front.
Panel discussion. Thank you so much to all of our speakers and to Melissa. It's really exciting to hear about how passion and resiliency and curiosity can really lead your entrepreneurial spirit in various journeys. But thank you. And on behalf of the Foundry at Laurentian University and the Regional Business Center, we've had a student from the Makerspace create some plaques as a token of appreciation for your participation. So I'll just hand those out to you now, and Rafi from the Regional Business Center will take a photo if that's all right. Yeah. Okay, so I've got one for Dean.
There we go. Excellent, thank you.
Okay, and just to close off, I want to share a few last-minute things that I've learned from the last the panel discussion. So I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are here in the room, and just remembering that there are a lot of roadblocks and barriers, and having to adjust your plan is something that was mentioned quite a bit, and thinking outside of the box, and that's all right. Also learning how important it is to have the right people in and around your team. And I think in the room that we have today, there are a lot of great people, a lot of people from the innovation ecosystem, a lot of entrepreneurs. So I invite you to stay and mingle and to chat with one another, exchange ideas, ask questions to any of the panelists here and speakers. We do have food over on the side there, help yourself. And we look forward to welcoming you back to Homegrown Ventures in 2027.